Validate your wudu.
Okay.
If it's allowed, huh?
Why do people laugh when they're praying?
You can. Just say you're praying and your kid in front of you does something funny, right? It can make you laugh. It can happen.
Yeah, how's it coming?
But in the
Yeah.
because
It can happen. Yeah.
So why does it say we should make wudu if we're just laughing outside of?
Outside of it's just saying it because it's not the practice of a believer to engage in such laughter. A person, the hadith mentions Rasulullah was laugh. He would never laugh extremely, excessively like that. So it's just against the etiquette of the believer that he laughs so excessively in that. In that, the person should be more focused on the akhirah and so on and so forth. Obviously, it's difficult to not laugh because there are certain instances that really make a person laugh when you see something hilarious or hear something hilarious. But if a person engages in that, it's best, like in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says regarding فَلْيَضْ. Well, the scholars say that excessive laughing kills the soul. It kills the heart because it makes you ghafil and unmindful of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. After having washed and carried a deceased body. Now, if you are taking part in the ghusl, the washing of a deceased body, or the carrying of the deceased body, hamal of the janazah, carrying it, or ghusl of the janazah, then it's recommended that a person make wudu after it. It's recommended. It doesn't invalidate your wudu, but it's recommended. And if you read in the commentary here, 96, there's a bit more detail, inshallah, regarding that. We're going to move on. For every new prayer time, it's recommended that a person, recommended again, because this is more befitting its state. Before the ritual bath, so if a person needs a ghusl, they're in hadath akbar, they had been with their wife or had a wet dream, or a woman who's coming off her menstrual cycle or her postnatal bleeding, she requires a bath in the state of hadath akbar, and you're about to take a ritual bath, then before that to make wudu first is a sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, so it's recommended that a person make wudu for that. On eating, drinking, sleeping or repeating sexual intercourse for a sexually impure person. So if somebody has already engaged in intercourse with their spouse and then they wanted to repeat, or they wanted to go downstairs, eat something, drink something, it's recommended that a person make wudu before they do that. And if they can't make wudu, at least they should wash their hands. At least they should wash their hands. This is the recommendation of the fuqaha. When angry, because ablution extinguishes the anger. And this is through experience as well. When you're angry, you make wudu. Usually with cold water, you calm down, inshallah. I don't get angry much, but I'm just saying. When reciting Quran or reading and narrating traditions out of respect for their nobility. So if you're reading the Quran without a mushaf, like a hafiz or anybody who knows Surah Yasin by heart and they want to read Surah Yasin on their way to work, for example, you're not required to have wudu if you're reading by memorization. You're not required to have wudu if you're reading by memorization, but out of respect, it's good for a person to have wudu because you're reciting the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When studying knowledge of sacred law, again, for the same reason, out of respect. On performing the adhan, because wudu is not a requirement for adhan. Wudu is a requirement for salah, but it's not a requirement for adhan. But don't do it for maghrib because then you need to go rush off and do your wudu and then come back and miss a rak'ah or two, right? Because in the Hanafi maghrib especially, you perform your maghrib straight after the adhan, right or not?
Yes.
Okay, in the non-Hanafi schools they read 2 rak'ah, right? And by the way, I think a diverse masjid should have a few minutes between the adhan of maghrib and maghrib prayer to cater to the brothers that want to perform those 2 rak'ah. I thought they would have done that here. They do it in other masjids across the country because you have some brothers that are from other madhahib. They want to perform 2 rak'ah between the adhan and between the iqamah of maghrib. It doesn't take long. It's just 2 minutes, 3 minutes. If we, I think the Quran Academy should implement it, inshallah. Okay.
Sometimes I do it.
I don't want to take the stick for it. You guys can, inshallah.
So that wudu is not for us.
Yeah, it's enough for the prayer. There is some detail about it, whether Rasulullah actually prayed it or not, or was it some Sahaba that prayed it and Rasulullah didn't disapprove. And so there are some narrations about it. We can discuss that in more detail when we come to the salah. What salahs are considered nafil and what salahs are not nafil and so on and so forth. Which salahs are sunnah. Okay. on performing the adhan, call to commence and sermon. Not khutbah of Jum'ah. Khutbah of Jum'ah requires wudu. Khutbah of Jum'ah requires wudu, but this is khutbah of nikah. So if you're performing a nikah, if you had the fortune to do that, inshallah, then it's good to have wudu. When visiting the Prophet ﷺ out of respect for his presence and for entering his mosque, Masjid Nabawi, it's good that a person be spiritually focused. Because without wudu, you can't be focused. It's very difficult to be focused without wudu. In anything, even if you're reading an Islamic book. Without wudu, it's very hard to be focused. But when you have wudu, then you freshen up and you can be more focused. On standing at Arafah, because of the nobility of the place and because Allah boasts to the angels about those standing at Arafah. So it's good for a person to be in a state of wudu in Arafah during Hajj. On going between Safa and Marwa so as to perfect the worship and because of the nobility of the two sites. After eating camel meat, there is some narrations that say eating camel meat because of the heat it develops, it will burn, it will nullify the wudu. But this is an abrogated hadith according to the Hanafi. They say that it doesn't nullify the wudu, but it's recommended for a person to make wudu after consuming camel meat. More generally, following from the previous point, to remove oneself from disagreement between all scholars, such as on touching a woman or on touching the genitals with the palm of the hand. By doing this, the worship would be valid by agreement, thereby securing oneself in religious matters. What this is saying basically is that there are certain actions that nullify the wudu according to some fuqaha, and according to other fuqaha, those actions will not nullify the wudu, such as kissing the wife, for example. If a person kisses the wife, then according to some fuqaha, the wudu breaks. According to the Hanafi, it doesn't break. But to save yourself and to be on the cautious side, just renew the wudu. That's what he's saying here. To be on the cautious side, just renew the wudu. Or if a person touched their genitals without any clothes, they just touched their genitals without any cloth, bila ha'il, then with the bare palm of the hand. Then by doing this, if a person does this according to the Hanafis, again, your wudu doesn't break because it's just like touching any other part of your body, right? But according to the Shawafi' and other fuqaha, some other fuqaha, the wudu will break. And because the wudu will break, according to the Shawafi', it's best for a person to just renew their wudu to be on the safe side. Now, for an imam, it's even more important. I mentioned this earlier, I think. I don't know if I remember, if you remember. But if you're an imam and you're serving a diverse crowd and you have in your crowds people who are Shafi'i, people who are not Shafi'i, so on and so forth, then to save yourself and to make sure everybody's salah is valid, it's best to make wudu during such instances. Like for example, another case is the case of wiping on socks. We're going to mention this subject in detail, inshallah, when we come to that. It's going to come soon, very soon. Some people are very eager about this subject. Wiping on socks. Masah al-khuffayn. So what socks are allowed to wipe on, what socks we're not allowed to wipe on. By the way, there is this website called sealskins.com. Sealskins.com. SEALSKINZ.com. Sealskins.com. And they do these socks that are really thick that meet the requirements of masah. And they're not leather. They're not leather, and the ulama have actually verified it. Okay, some very, very conservative and strict ulama have verified it. So you can wear them in your shoes very comfortably. You can go through immigrations and everything with them, and when you're on the plane, that's the most difficult time to wash your feet on the plane, because those sinks are really difficult to wash your feet when you're making wudu. So if you can, inshallah, order them, and order one for me, and I'll pay you, inshallah, as well. Sealskins.com. Okay. Right, sealskins.com is a good website, inshallah. It's verified by ulama. There's many different types of socks you can get there as well. There's many different types. I think like it'll be cheaper if you go on Amazon. You can get them for like $22 a pair. I know it's expensive for socks, but but you have to learn the rulings of Masah al-Khuffayn before you start wearing them, because you have to make a complete wudu before you wear them. Then you're only allowed to make Masah. And for 24 hours, after 24 hours it expires. And 24 hours begins from the time your wudu breaks. So if you do full wudu 8 in the morning and you wore the socks and your wudu broke at 10, then 24 hours begins from 10. Not from 8 when you made the wudu, from the time you broke your wudu. And it's 72 hours for a traveler. 72 hours for a traveler. But if you take the socks off, then you have to wash your feet. Once you remove the socks, you have to wash it. We're going to learn these rulings, inshallah, they're coming up. But, right. Nullifying agents of ablution. This is known as nawaqidul wudu. Nawaqid. Nawaqid is the plural of naqid. Naqid means breaker. Naqada yanqudu means to break in Arabic. So which actions nullify the wudu? Anything that comes from the front and rear orifice other than wind from the front orifice according to the most correct position. So by anything they mean that even if like an ant or something came out, an ant came out a person's backside for example, that will also nullify the wudu. This nullifies the ablution even if it is a small and even if it is not normal, such as tapeworm or a pebble. Okay.
Is there anything outside of air?
And anything other than air. If air comes out of the front, it won't nullify the wudu. Okay? But if air comes out from the back, it will definitely nullify the wudu. So anything from the back will nullify wudu, anything from the front other than air will nullify the wudu. That's what we're saying here. Wind from the front orifice does not nullify because it is a convulsion and not wind. Even if it is wind, there is no impurity involved. However, wind from the back orifice nullifies because it passes over impurity. The wind itself is pure, therefore according to most scholars, breaking wind does not make the wet garment of a person impure. So if you pass wind, it doesn't make the garment you were wearing impure. Right? But it nullifies the wudu. Okay? Also, out of caution, the wind of the woman who urinates and defecates from one orifice nullifies. Okay? Obviously there's 3 orifices for a woman they bleed from, urinate from, and what they pass stool from. But they're saying that if, for example, there is a woman who for some reason that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best regarding that woman, she defecates and urinates from the same hole, for example, okay, just scenario, then it says that out of caution the wind of the woman who urinates and defecates from one orifice nullifies as well. Generally, wind only from the back orifice will nullify, not from the front orifice. Coming out of urine is determined by the appearance of wetness at the head of the orifice or the foreskin, if uncircumcised, according to the correct position. Everybody knows for experience whether they have passed urine or not. Right? Everybody knows from experience. We don't need to explain this. This is very obvious. Giving birth without the appearance of blood, is that even possible? But the fuqaha discussed it. They just discussed it to come to a conclusion. Giving birth without the appearance of blood, even though it's impossible. In this instance, according to the statement of Abu Yusuf and the final statement of Muhammad. Who's Muhammad? Muhammad ibn Hassan al-Shaybani. Not the Prophet ﷺ, but Muhammad ibn Hassan al-Shaybani, the student of Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah. So he says, according to Imam Abu Yusuf and Imam Muhammad ibn Hassan al-Shaybani, the woman is not considered to be in a state of postnatal bleeding if no blood appears. And because she's not in the state of postnatal bleeding, then she doesn't need to take a bath either, because there is no postnatal bleeding. This is their opinion. This is the correct stance because postnatal bleeding is connected to blood, and here no blood is present. Abu Hanifa rahimahullah holds that she performs a ritual bath out of caution because giving birth is never free of even a small amount of blood. This has been authenticated in Fatawa and is the fatwa of Sadr Shaheed, Allah have mercy with him. So these are all Hanafi fuqaha, jurists. I mean, this is the same for anybody, and this would be the same for any of the other fuqaha. Number 3, flowing impurity from other than the front and rear orifice, such as blood and pus. This is according to Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah and many of the Sahaba radiallahu anhum as mentioned here. This is because of his statement. This is very clear. Blood or pus flowing from any other part of the body other than the front or rear orifice. Flowing. Flowing means that it moves from its place. Flowing means that it moves from its place. This will nullify the wudu. This is the school of the 10 promised Sahaba, the Ashara Mubashara. They had the same opinion. Ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anh, Ibn Abbas radiallahu anh, Zayd ibn Thabit, Abu Musa Ash'ari radiallahu anhum, and other leading companions, as well as major figures amongst the students of the companions, such as Al-Hasan al-Basri, Ibn Sirin, Muhammad ibn Sirin rahimahullah. They held the same opinion that flowing blood will nullify the wudu.
If you have a wound or something and the blood flows, you wipe it and you make wudu and it flows again.
Then you wipe it again, make wudu again. You should make wudu when it stops.
What if the time for prayer is there and you don't?
Then you have to. You can't make wudu if it's continuously bleeding. And the question that you might be asking, I'm not sure, correct me if I'm wrong, is about the ma'dur. When is a person considered excused?
Exactly.
When is a person considered excused? Because some people, they suffer from something in Urdu called naksir. What is it in English, naksir?
Hemophilia.
Sorry?
Hemophilia.
Hemophilia, is that when you're continuously bleeding from the nose? Like some people suffer this constant nosebleed, or there are some people that are suffering from wind and the passing of wind. Not even, they can't even find 10 minutes without the passing of wind. There's some people who have these sicknesses, they have these problems, health problems. There's some people who have health problems where they're constantly passing urine, even little bits of urine, or they have a bag of urine that's attached to them because they're constantly passing urine. So when does a person fall under the category of ma'dur? Ma'dur is a person who is considered excused. Udhr means excuse. Ma'dur is